Welcome to The Impossible, where we empower others to face the impossible, inspire them to be impossible, and motivate them to do the impossible. I'm Matt, and we are back this week with another solo episode, and wanted to come on and chat with you guys this week about several different things, but largely we want to start focusing on the structure and how to build a lot of what we talk about in so many of these episodes with so many of our guests, and what we talk about in our mission working toward building our vision for the world. And that is this concept of being impossible. You'll see we say at the end of a lot of our social media posts, be impossible. You've heard that line thrown around since day one. And largely, for me personally, it's been a guiding mantra since my time over 10 years ago when I was battling cancer as a teenager. And one of the things I want to point out about that is that the mantra is be impossible. The mantra is not do the impossible. Now, we've talked about this before on the show, but the reason we focus so heavily on that is that doing the impossible has a little bit more that's out of our control. It also is the result, the outcome, rather than the process. The being impossible is the process. And it is where all of the benefit comes from. It's where we exhibit all of our personal control. It's where we fight all of our personal challenge. And because of all that, it's where all of the growth occurs. So this is why we focus on the being impossible. You'll hear this largely expanded out to 3 separate parts: face the impossible, be impossible, and do the impossible. And it's kind of a stepwise process in that manner. It allows us to create a new version of ourselves. When we face something that is so great that it feels impossible, like there's no remote way we could ever overcome that, ever achieve it. When we face that impossible, we don't focus on, well, how do I achieve this? How do I overcome this? How do I do X, Y, Z, all of these things? Rather, we focus on, how do I build the person who is capable of overcoming these things? I don't have to worry about doing it myself. I know that I can't do it myself, but I know there's a version of me that I could build who can. And once I build that impossible version of myself, that version of myself who never could have or should have existed otherwise, they will be the ones who can do the impossible. And so we're working to build more framework around this, like step by step, exactly how do you do this? Because it's a little bit of an ethereal concept. It's not something that I can just say, you do, it's done, and game over, we all go home. It's something that takes so much tremendous amount of time and energy and dedication and practice. But it's a process that Austin and I both know from our personal lives, and so many of our guests know from their personal lives, that when implemented correctly and fully, it literally has the power to change your life. And what's greater than that is it has the power to change the lives of those around you, those who look up to you, and everyone you impact across your life. And that's ultimately what we want to accomplish. Creating that global culture of strength that we discuss in our vision statement. We want to be able to help spread this practice, this process, to as many people as possible, to help everyone grow in this capacity, to develop, to build, so that everyone is working toward building these impossible versions of themselves, so that we can all have an infinitely greater and impossible impact on the world around us. So where does it start? I think it honestly starts, I used to say it starts with facing the impossible, but I've actually kind of modified that a little bit. I think it actually starts with your passion and your priorities. If you guys heard last week's episode, an incredible discussion with Addie Eichert, a local entrepreneur, she discussed how passion is such a quintessential piece to everything we do. And that's because passion is the fuel. Passion is the fire. Passion shows you what you should be spending your time and your energy and your resources focusing on in your life. What are you passionate about? What do you love? And ultimately, once you search and work through and find that passion and go down the process of figuring it out and honing it and narrowing it and guiding it into a really selective force, that's where you find your purpose. That's where you build your purpose. And that is not an easy process, but that is where you have to start. Because you don't want to take this practice and apply it to something that you do not have passion for. Now, it doesn't have to always be the thing you're the singularly most passionate about in life, but you have to have passion for it. Otherwise, it will not work. It will not come to fruition. And passion is likely going to have to be a whole separate episode of exactly how do you find that, how do you cultivate it, how do you curate it, and how do you ultimately develop it into a guiding purpose. But for the purpose of today's discussion, we're going to focus on passion. Our logo has a heart on fire at the center of it. That is passion. For us, that symbolizes passion. So find in your life that which sets your heart on fire and do not apologize for it. I don't care if it's trading baseball cards. I don't care if it's playing video games. I don't care what it is. Find that thing that sets your heart on fire, that when you do it, it feels like time does not exist. Time is not a constraint. Time is not something you are actively noticing going by. Find that thing. And once you find that, start searching into it, start fueling into it. Figure out exactly what piece of that thing calls to you and moves you. And use that process toward building your purpose. Because once you have this purpose figured out, once you have passion and purpose towards something, that is where this process of being impossible starts. So when we have passion and purpose, we can then take those and use them to find something impossible to face if we're not already if it's not already been put upon us, such as a cancer diagnosis, or maybe a financial hardship, or maybe some other health challenge, whatever it is in your life. Maybe it's the loss of a loved one. Sometimes the impossible is placed upon us. Sometimes we face it totally independent of our own volition. And in those moments, it may not be the passion and purpose driving us. It may simply be a means of needing to be whole again, needing to heal, needing to work through a challenge that maybe we never chose, but was chosen for us. Yet those times as well are some of the most critical places where we can live out that passion and purpose and influence those who we work with in those capacities. So whatever your impossible is, whether it was something you chose or something placed upon you, when you face the impossible, that is a whole step and a whole practice in and of itself. Sometimes it's something that you don't necessarily have a choice in going through, but I believe we all have a choice as to whether or not we face it, and more importantly, to how we face it. And that sets the tone for the entire rest of the process. You can either look at this thing, let it consume you, let it control you, feel the crushing weight of the fear and crumble under it, or you can look at this thing, still feeling all of the fear, all of the anxiety, all of the frustration, all of the anger, whatever emotions you have tied to it. Feel all of that. But recognize that you have control. You have the ability to stand up to this thing, whatever it is, look it square in the eye, and say, I'm going to face this. I'm going to use this situation to build up myself, to create a version of myself that wouldn't have otherwise existed. I'm going to face this. I'm going to use this to inspire and motivate and drive those around me. I'm going to show them something impossible. Something that should not have ever happened. That's how you face the impossible. Not in the absence of fear, but completely cloaked in it. And choosing to move forward down that path anyway. And the reason I focus on this so much is because I spent so much of my life in my darkest times trying to escape fear, not even understanding why I was feeling fearful. My cancer was gone. I'd been cured. I was living what I was told was the life of my dreams. But I was not happy. Every night, I drank myself to sleep for fear of what was in my mind. And I felt so guilty because I couldn't figure out why I felt this way when I was supposed to feel happy. But here's the thing. We aren't supposed to feel any certain way about anything. A lot of times, we don't have active control over the emotions we may feel in any given moment or in response to any given thing. And so when we talk about the emotional domain of performance and learning to build control and strength in your emotions, it's not about picking and choosing, oh, here's what emotion I'm going to feel right now. Certainly you can develop triggers that help elicit certain emotions when they're appropriate. But it's not just about filling your shopping basket of, oh, I want some happiness today. I want some anger and aggression today. I want whatever it is. That's not how it works. A lot of times, our emotions come to us. And then the strength comes in how do we process them? How do we channel them? And are we bringing net positive to ourselves and those around us from them? Or are we allowing them to control us and bring out a world of negativity in the process? That's what I spent a lot of my life doing. And that is not something I choose to allow to control me anymore. So let yourself feel that emotion. And this is one of the hardest practices we can take on, but learn to develop skill and strengthen this skill. And when you feel that emotion, literally in your mind, picture yourself taking a step back from that emotion. Observe it. Say, this is a lot of fear. This is a lot of fear that I have right now. And let me work through it. Let me feel it one little piece at a time, as much as I can. Find those things in your life, whether it's training weights or reading or going for a walk, being in nature, whatever these things are that help you process and work through these emotions, find those things. And even if this emotion that is accompanied with this impossible challenge in front of you, even if it feels like a mountain, something you could never work through, just start allowing yourself to take it on one piece at a time. Don't let it consume you. Don't let it overwhelm you. Don't let it control you. Remember, you control it. All of these emotions are a part of you, and while they do not define you, they came from you in some capacity. And because they come from us, we can learn to exhibit control over them. Again, not necessarily in just controlling what we feel, but we can control the intensity of it. We can control how much we allow ourselves to feel at any given time. We can control what we direct it at. We can control how we move forward with it. And it is not an easy process. It's one that's taken me 12 years to even feel like I'm starting to get a grasp on it. And even then, I'm far from perfect with it. But I am leagues beyond where I used to be in this process. So we'll dive into other full episodes of exactly how to do this, because again, it's a very nuanced topic. But learning to control the emotion that comes with this facing of the impossible. Face the impossible correctly. Face it steadfast, maybe even with a bit of defiance, as I know Austin has certainly demonstrated to us. And while you may feel fear, you may feel anger, you may feel all sorts of emotion, that is great. Use that to drive your passion for facing this impossible challenge. Because the next step comes with creating the impossible version of yourself. But it's even more than that. It's being the impossible version of yourself. And this is where the core of everything we discuss lies. Because this is where all of the work is done. All of the growth is done. This is the part where you change the fabric of reality. Because had you not faced this impossible challenge, you would have just continued on the exact same as you were. But now by facing this challenge, you have a unique opportunity to create a new version of yourself, an impossible version of yourself, someone who could not or should not otherwise have existed. This is largely done through what we've been talking about recently, the 4 domains of performance. And you have to stand back first and start asking a lot of questions. So I'm going to provide a little bit of a framework to this so you guys can see an example of what this process looks like. We've already discussed a little bit the 500-pound squat, but I'm going to save that one for now because we have a very special guest coming on here in the next few months where we're going to dive into that process and really unpack each individual piece of it. But today I want to discuss something that's upcoming for me. And while it may not be the single greatest impossible I've ever faced, it's certainly something that I look at it and I'm actually filled with a little bit of amusement at how ridiculously impossible it is. But that's been perfect for me, for this new phase of joy I've been embracing in life. So the challenge in front of me, the impossible challenge I'm facing at the moment, is I have about 28 days left to train for a marathon. After the meet, I clocked in at right around 300 pounds body weight. I have only one leg to run on with the assistance of a prosthetic device. I have significant health challenge that I face that we're still working to figure out and have been since nearly 5 years ago, that causes extreme muscle breakdown, food sensitivity that makes fueling difficult, and really inhibited recovery. So I've got all these things. Not only that, the way my priorities align, I'm going to be putting significant amount of time, energy, and effort into our business Impossible Performance, as well as my family, as well as my own personal health. So with all of this going on, 28 days from now, I'm going to toe the line to run the Columbus Marathon. Very little training, more reasons than I've ever had before to not run it. And yet somehow I've got to find a way to make this happen. Now that, to me, is truly something impossible. I had not run at all in 2025 because I was putting so much time and energy and focus into the 500-pound squat. And for anyone who's ever done either discipline, you know that high amounts of low intensity cardio does not mix well with peak strength training. So I'd given up a lot of the cardio side to chase the highest level of strength, and I'm glad that I did. But now it's time to shift gears a little bit. Coming out of that 500-pound squat, it was all of my intention to live my life more in a greater accordance to my priorities anyway, which we've already discussed on this show. For me, number 1 is health. Number 2 is family. Number 3 is impossible performance. Number 4 is personal athletic achievement. And it's been one of the most gratifying, joyful things I've ever gotten to experience, to live in full accordance to these priorities. You guys have already seen how much our production has increased, how much our show has improved, how much more posting we're doing, more of sharing this message we're able to do because of this focus on impossible performance. I'm spending more time with my family than I've ever been able to before. And while this is going to be a very long road, I'm getting to put more energy and dedication to my health than I ever have been before. So when I face something impossible, like going from having not run in many, many, many months to then I've got 28 days to train for a marathon. I want you to think about that. Imagine if right now, who you are, 28 days from now, you have to go run a marathon. And don't just chalk it up to saying that that I'm some kind of genetic exception or some kind of genetic anomaly, because I certainly am not. And in fact, if I am, it's in ways that you wouldn't want to be, due to several of the diagnoses I've had in my life. Everybody has the capacity for this. And while you may not choose to run a marathon, that may not be your thing. Running certainly is not my thing, but being able to live out and demonstrate this message, that is my thing. So I have to face this impossible, which for me has kind of become a background process at this point. I can really default mode my way through that because I've been so fortunate to have the opportunity to do it so many times in my life. There are certainly impossible challenges that are harder than others. The 500-pound squat being one of the most challenging I've had to work through recently. But really in my mind now, I'm facing the impossible. And yeah, there's fear, there's questioning, there's disbelief. All of those emotions are there. But for me, I can sit back and know in my heart, you've been here before. You've faced these impossible challenges before, when it seemed like there was absolutely no way it would come to fruition. And every time I still build that impossible version of myself, and especially in all the times I end up doing something impossible, every single time, that makes me stronger. That makes the next impossible I face that much easier to control, work through, process all of those emotions that are tied with facing that challenge. I've been here before. I've done it before. I'll do it again. And not only that, but working with 28 days, we don't have a lot of time to sit in this area of working through this challenge, figuring out this challenge. How am I going to tackle it? For me, it was pretty quickly apparent. First step, I needed to cut a significant amount of body weight. I'd built up a significant amount of body weight in chasing that 500-pound squat, trying to get myself in as peak of a strength form as I possibly could have. And I believe we accomplished that with the help of my coach, Curtis Miller, and so many others along that way. But now it's time to switch gears, get to a healthier spot. So that was goal number 1, because for every pound I can lose, that makes it that much easier for the 40,000 steps I'm going to take in running this marathon. So that was goal number 1. Goal number 2, my body doesn't always like to respond as I would like it to. In a lot of ways, like recovery, the muscle breakdown is up and down. I've got iron deficiency anemia that causes my heart rate to be a bit out of control, as well as my oxygen carrying capacity to be way down. So, strategy number 2 is literally just put as many low intensity miles as I can in. Do as much volume as I can make happen. get time under tension that we've talked about with running before, clocking in steps, clocking in miles in any way that I possibly can, whenever I can. I don't have a lot of strategy as far as I'm going to do sprints this day, and I'm going to do long runs this day, and I'm going to do, zone 2 this day, and I'm going to do zone 3 and 4 this day. All of that does not exist for me right now, because the challenges and the constraints with my health just do not allow for that at the moment. And that's okay. I didn't say I was trying to finish a marathon in record time. I'm merely working to finish a marathon. And all that requires is the ability to keep going, to get my body healthy enough to withstand the challenge, and then build my mind strong enough to overcome the urge and the desire to quit, to feel comfortable in a world of pain and hurt. And so that's all I need to be able to run this marathon. So goal 1, cut body weight. Goal 2, log as much volume as I possibly can before October 19th. And then goal 3 is a bit of a different one for me, but one I've been very excited to take on. And it is really focused on the mental and spiritual domain of performance, because this domain was opened up to me in a way that I had never experienced it before. I thought I had access to high amounts of mental and spiritual strength, but what I have seen now is nothing compared to what I had before that 500-pound squat. It's amazing how in 10 seconds, a whole new world can open up to you. That lift took, I don't know exactly how long it was, but it couldn't have been more than 10 or 15 seconds. And so much of me changed. My mental strength, my emotional strength, my spiritual strength, and technically my physical strength as well. All 4 domains opened up new opportunities for me. And so now I have kind of a new canvas on which to construct my mentality, my mindset, as well as my spiritual strength, and to a point some of my emotional strength as well. And I know those are the areas where I am most strong, most effective. And so I'm going to have to rely heavily on these areas to not just show up race day ready to go, but to build this impossible version of myself over the next 28 days. So right now I'm doing things like daily journaling, meditation, putting myself in moments during training runs where I'm in a significant amount of pain, learning to feel comfortable, teaching my mind to feel comfortable in those moments, to know that is making me stronger, that is making me better. I'm working through a process of teaching my mind right now. When I see things that would take me off the path that I want to be on right now, I have a negative internal reaction, because I know that that's something that would lead me astray, lead me away from this impossible version of myself I'm building. And so those are the 3 biggest goals I have for building toward this marathon. And I like these goals because they're very simple, very short, very easy to approach. There's not a lot of complexity to it. And I like that because with the time constraints we have, there is no room for complexity. So we keep it short and simple. Drop some body weight to make the impact less, to make the total workload as low as possible, so that when I face these health challenges, I can go as far as possible before they would become potentially dangerous. Second, put in as much volume, as many miles as possible, just to build up that cardio base so that I have something to work with come race day. And third, maximize what are my very strongest points in increasing my mental and spiritual strength that I know have carried me through so many impossible challenges before and will do so again. So that is how I'm building the impossible version of myself. I'm creating somebody who without this challenge would not have existed otherwise. And while it may not be a great or grand transformation as I've done in the past, the year of 2023, building up, and then more recently building up for the 500-pound squat. While it may not be the grandest transformation I've ever had, I will come out net positive from this process. I will have built somebody who was infinitely more capable, in better health, with higher levels of mental and spiritual strength than I would have been had I not faced this challenge. And that's, to me, what matters the most. I'm going to build that impossible version, and that is where the growth occurs. By losing the weight, by clocking in the miles, by building that mental and spiritual aspect, I will have grown myself into somebody who is stronger, more capable, somebody who is impossible. And that's where the victory is. Because ultimately, on the doing the impossible side, and I can't wait to sit down with Austin and discuss a full episode on this aspect. But what I love so much about our message and our mission is that the doing the impossible matters so... Ultimately, it matters so little that it would be considered irrelevant, except in the moments you achieve it. And now that has to be something shocking and striking to hear me say. But our mission is executed and our vision is realized not through doing the impossible, but through the being impossible. Because that is when you build the person who has the capacity to change the world around them. And while doing the impossible is still included in our mission, it is not our primary focus. We do focus on it, though, because in those moments you do something impossible, it has the power to change the core of who you are, to rewrite the fabric of reality in almost an instantaneous moment. That happened for me in 2023. It happened most powerfully for me at the end of that 500-pound squat. And at the finish line of that marathon on October 19th, I expect it to happen again. And this is where the doing the impossible comes in. We can't put all of our success or failure or victory or loss on whether or not we end up doing the impossible. Because really, the most important part, the growth, the development, the building of strength, creating that new version of yourself, that's all done in the being the impossible. Being impossible. And so as long as you've built that impossible version of yourself, you can't control, come game day, whether some little thing goes wrong that could derail the whole thing, whether you find your highest potential that day and it's not quite as high as you hoped it would be. Some of these things are a little bit out of your control. But as long as you've built that impossible version of yourself, you will come out of this process a better, stronger, more capable, more confident, more powerful human being than you were before. And that's where the victory occurs. But, and for anybody who's ever felt this, listening to me talk now, I know several of you have because I've witnessed it. I've been an honor to be a part of your journey. I want you to think to those moments where you did something in your life you never thought you would be able to do, never thought would happen. There is something magical about those moments. And the reason we chase those moments isn't for necessarily the feeling of victory or the feeling like we did something amazing, we did something impossible. Those aren't necessarily the core reason why we chase those. We chase those moments Because when everything comes together, you built the person you needed to build. You went through the process. You set yourself up for success at every avenue, and it all comes together to doing something that even you didn't know if you could do or not. There is a feeling so intense and so special that I struggle to even come up with words to describe it in this moment. But it's literally this feeling as if the fabric of reality is being rewritten. And as a matter of fact, as crazy as it sounds, that's what's happening. Because that impossible thing would not have been achieved otherwise. Therefore, through the process of finding your passion, creating your purpose, facing the impossible challenge, building the impossible version of yourself, and ultimately doing that impossible thing, you rewrote the fabric of your own reality. And when you realize that you have the power and the capacity to do that, the rules of your life change. The battlefield changes. What you thought you understood as reality, what you thought you understood your limitations to be, what you thought you understood your potential to be, and more importantly, the potential of those around you, it all changes. And so in those moments of doing the impossible, it's not the victory or the achievement or the glory that is the most powerful experience. It's the realization that limitations do not exist. That you have a potential beyond anything you would have ever allowed yourself to dream of beforehand. That if you can overcome, if you can do this impossible thing, what else can you do in your life? What else can others do in their lives? And when you start asking those kind of questions, you're on a path that will change the world. This is the process of pursuing the impossible. And I can't thank each and every one of you enough for being a part of this journey with us. Because you are how we live out our mission to realize our ultimate vision. And we want you guys as involved with us as you possibly can be every step of the way. Because we want to help instill what we've learned, what we've been so fortunate, so blessed to be able to develop in our own lives. We want to help bring that to you and your passion and your purpose in life. We want to be able to help as many people as possible find that passion, create that purpose, face the impossible challenge in their lives, build the impossible version of themselves, and ultimately do something impossible. So that the chains and the constraints they cling to for so long can be broken and they can be free to discover their highest potential. So if you guys want to learn more about what we do, this mission, this message, this mindset, please follow us on all of our social media platforms. We're on Instagram, we're on TikTok, we do YouTube Shorts now. We have our website, impossibleperformance.com, where you can reach out, dive into a little bit deeper aspects of our mission and our vision. And the best way to really get into the nitty-gritty of this mission and mindset is through our podcast here. So whether you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or if you're tuning into YouTube to check out our new full-length multicam video platform. Please give us a follow. Please give us a subscribe. Hit that little notification sign so that you can know when every single new episode drops. We drop a new episode every single Tuesday. And I cannot wait for some of the guests, some of the impossible minds we have coming on this show here in the next several weeks and months to be able to share with you guys some really massive guests that I cannot wait for us all to be able to learn from together. And as always, the number one thing we ask is if this episode or any other episode impacted you in some way, please share it. If you click that little share icon, click copy link, copy that link into a post, into a text message, into an email, whatever means is easiest and most effective for you, and share it with as many people as you know who you believe it would help. Because at the end of the day, that is how we live out our mission. That is how we reach as many people as possible, and that is how we are going to work together, all of us, to change the world. Because at Impossible Performance, we are striving to build a global culture of strength, fostering a spirit of growth in constant pursuit of the impossible. Thank you guys for listening, and as always, be impossible.